Bullying really is a reflection of a community attitude. And that if you think of the schools we view are the soul of the community. If you look at what a school is, it reflects everything about a community. The future citizenship, etc. You can see that when a school is violent, it really is disconnected from the community. Because I don't know any parent. I mean, I'm a parent and a grandparent, and if you're here as a parent, you're here wondering, what do I do when my child is bullied at school? If you're a teacher, you're trying to say, well, how can I deal with this? And if you're a researcher, you're trying to say, well, there's hundreds of programs, which is the right one? And I think the question here that we pose here is, why is it that a school gets violent? How is it that the schools can lose control and can become violent? The first thing that we would like to outline is that a bully is not a person. Everybody here has bullied today. Maybe within the last, if you're driving around, maybe in the last 5 minutes, trying to find a parking space. Everybody's been a victim, and everybody's been a bystander. So, in our view, bullying is a normal human process. It's not a disease, it's not a mental illness, it's a normal process. In that we have a saying, which will come up on the slide, about bullying will only happen when bystanders allow it to happen. It's not something that happens in a vacuum. It's not something that comes from some deep, dark place in your soul. It really is a normal process. What happens is that when that process goes in dismissive environments, if you don't pay attention to it, it will evolve into a very sick and dangerous phenomenon that can result in either murder, as in the school shootings in the United States, or the suicide, which is also now becoming more common. The common engine for that is shame and humiliation. The byproduct of this process going on without having some type of adult interference is shame and humiliation. And that really is the ray gun. And I think we're going to speak tonight about the cyberbullying. And this is my son over here, the graphic artist. And I tried to portray, when you send your child to school, particularly when your child goes from an elementary or primary school to a larger school, the dynamic of bullying really changes. So that you have some children that are sort of strong, and you have some children who are kind of shy and withdrawn, maybe with a disability, maybe with some type of learning issue, and they sort of come into this school, and the school is sort of this swirling collection of social dynamics. Lots of social hierarchies, and it's all basically driven by the concept of inclusion and exclusion. So as the child enters these environments, they're going to have a certain temperament. And when they enter these schools, then they're going to get pulled into this drama. And basically, the idea in bullying is that it's an act between two people, a bully and a victim. But really, the audience is the engine for the continuation of this play. And if there was nobody sitting in this audience, we'd go home. So the same thing happens in bullying. So if you can conceptualize it here, you have children of varying temperaments entering into what can become a vicious fishbowl of social activity. And I think the idea behind it, our approach here, is that this is really a social process. This is not a person. If you try to identify, oh, you're a bully, and you're a victim, you I'm going to punish, and you I'm going to send to psychotherapy, what will end up happening is as soon as you take those two people out of that whirlwind, two more people will take their place. So it really is important to look at it as a social process and to look at it as a process in which the different roles are enacted. I think we talked about we're all bullies, we're all victims, and the other thing that is really powerful here is that bullies will only do what bystanders allow. And I like to just think, if you can think back to when you were in primary school, there was always a teacher that you knew you didn't want to mess around with. And that she didn't have to go around, or he didn't have to go around thumping the desk and saying, well, you better not do this, or you better not do that. It was known. They had the ability to say, not in my classroom. Period. It's not going to happen here. And I think that's one of the key concepts in our understanding of bullying. Now, the new thing, which really has demanded that experts are now becoming extinct. We're losing our jobs because really we don't understand the language of modern children. There's a clear digital divide. If you are a certain age, you sort of get it. That cyberbullying now is a way in which the bullying is continued. That it's an inescapable amphitheater. That it used to be you go to school and someone would pick and you'd have a fight and then you go home and then there'd be a period of time. But now what happens is that the boundaries between home, school, and the community are invisible. They're all connected in a cyber web. That web now has spread over the consciousness of children so that it's inescapable. And that's what really adds to the lethality of these situations. It's not just kids' business anymore, because the feeling of inescapability, that sense of, oh my God, that people don't like me, my friends don't like me now, so I'll never be liked. My life is over, and there's no sense of it. I mean, it's inescapable because you can't get away from it. And cyberbullying really is, the idea behind it is that you can constantly communicate the dynamics of what's going on in school through they're like ray guns. You can go out to a dinner now, and you sit there, and there's 4 kids sitting at the table. All 4 of them are talking to somebody else. But why be together if you're going to be talking to somebody else? I mean, that's something that we don't. I mean, my age, I don't get it. I like to go out to dinner and see the person. How you doing? How was your day? How's everything going? It's like this. And it's maddening to someone who's older because you say, well, what's up with this? What's up with that? And I'm 1 and 2, 1, And so I think the idea behind this is really, in terms of developing, CASSE has really emphasized this. And I think when Stuart comes up and talks about some more of the deeper dynamics here, that we really CASSE has really made a strong effort. And I think you'll see a clip from Lumen Christie, which really gave us we've been stealing this word, upstander. We talk about bystander, we talk about bullies, and the kids came up with the word upstander. And then they were the ones to be able to say, well, okay, let's have a committee. And they got together a group of kids, and some of them not always the teacher's pets, and not always the goody-goodies, and not, it was a good mixture of kids that had leadership potential, and they came up with that term. And that term became a language, that became a way to talk about it in the school. So they didn't have to go around and say, oh, you're bad. Okay? They were able to talk about, I was an upstander. I saw something happen, and I was an upstander, and I did this. Because the solution does not lie in the bully or the victim. And I think we're really behind times now is in trying to bring the youth into the picture and to harness their capacity to understand this world. Okay, that we don't understand it as well as kids. The kids were born into this world, and we, even if we're cool, even if we know how to get on it, and we have the Facebook, I don't have Facebook, and I don't know what a tweet is, and I don't know all of this, but that's the essence of the way they are with each other. And for us to try to enter that process and say, well, we have a way to fix this, is not exactly the approach that we would recommend. And it really has to come from the children. I know Emma was the sort of architect of this little scheme at Human Christie there. And it was just brilliant how it just sort of came from the kids. But the adults have to really have sort of you don't want to let the kids run with it. Please don't get that idea. Because it'll turn into a bomb if you do that. You really want to make sure that the children have a strong voice. You want to try to hear what it is they say. They understand the problem. They know who the problems are. They know how the problems unfold. And I think with some guidance and given some structures, they are able to really help understand and build ways of intervening in this process. If you want to look at some of the dynamic behind this process, bullying doesn't just happen in a vacuum. You can't have a bully without a victim. And you can't really have a bully and a victim without having an audience. So it really has struck us that the bystander is not just a passive observer in this, but they are the engines. They are the power behind the drama. They are the audience that pays. They provide the fuel for this process. And this process is an ever-flowing, shifting set of roles that include the bully, the victim, and the bystander. You can't look at any one role and say, well, this is this. That this is a trialectic. They're co-created roles. You can't have one without the other. And I think it's very important to not, because as educators, or parents, if you come in and somebody says to you, your kid was a bully, and then you say, my kid? What about the other kid? And so then, once you start to identify that role, once you fix that role with an individual, you then turn principals into Judge Judy, and the parents will be into one side and the other side, and nothing really ends up getting done. What ends up happening is you get to fight over who's more of what. And I think what Dr. Twemlow will emphasize later is that we see the bully and the victims as two victims, both blaming each other. That we don't see one being really a dominant and the other being submissive, while those roles may be shifting around in that fashion. I think it's important to say that, and by the way, it's not just a kid's thing. That bullying doesn't stop at 16. Okay? That there's bullies of all ages, all genders, all roles. It's not a static thing.